Good evening from my dear fellow Indians and my fellow countrymen. This is not just for Indians, it's from people from all over the world, especially from developing countries or those whose mind orientation and cultural orientation need to change with the times and need to become more pragmatic. Okay, so basically, to recapitulate, the title of this video is Should Mind Orientations and Cultural Orientations of Indians Change with the Time? Okay, in a paper that I had published on symbiotic approach to social cultural change a couple of years ago, I have been repeating this, reiterating this on and off in a couple of papers. I have spoken about different mind orientations that people may have. Okay, these are family orientation. Okay, desire to satisfy the needs of the fulfillments of the family, requirements of the family. This is associated with more traditional families. And you also have a concept of individual mind orientation where people are self-centered, self-centric, and think more about themselves. I also have a concept of employment of business orientation where people are more worried about their job. Societal orientation where people think about the society and need to influence society, like what I'm doing. And people also have religious, spiritual, or philosophical orientation. These three are essentially different. People may be more religiously oriented or more philosophical. Okay, lost in the world, this and the seventh cloud, etc. And people may also be intellectual. Sometimes they may also have creative orientation. Intellectual, creative orientation need not necessarily be the same thing. Sometimes people are more militant. They want to take up uh, the causes of society with a gusto, and they want to fight for the protection of society, etc. People also have, there are also anarchists and queer men also. They are basically lost. They don't have any proper mind direction. And we also have concepts of composite mind orientation, and we also have because people may not have one mind orientation alone, they may focus on many different things in their life. However, one strand may predominate always. Okay, that is generally noticed. And we also have the concept of diversity of mind orientations. Diversity of mind orientation means as societies mature, evolve, and change with the times, they become more complex, and the diversity of mind orientations also increases. There are different types of mind orientation, and different echelons and different sections of society. And the mind space may be temporary or internal. In minds, we also have concept of mind space, thought words, and worldviews. Mind space is basically temporary internal. I've spoken about mind space at length. Thought words is again internal. Worldviews is again external. These may change with times. I've also spoken about horizontal, vertical, and lateral forces. So infiltration and exfiltration forces also I've spoken about, and the ethnography of infiltration. So vertical forces what come from your previous or what come from your previous generation. Horizontal forces which what come from your peers. You have endosphere, exosphere, and mesosphere also. Lateral forces are what come from other cultures. I have also spoken about the symbiotic approach of social cultural change. This is basically a synchronic model, and this can be given a diachronic orientation also, so that you have a synchronic diachronic approach. Okay, again, you have different types of cultural orientations. There are seven basic cultural orientations I've spoken about. Again, Hofstede has spoken about the cultural dimensions theory. My theory is also related to that. You have past orientation versus future orientation. Indians unfortunately have still have a past orientation. You have concept of inward looking cultures versus outward looking cultures. We also have concepts of xenophobic cultures. Like some countries are fearful of external influences. Some countries are xenocentric. They are enamored of external and western. We had a concept of vaping the West, at least among the elites in India. So by and large, Indians are somewhat a closed group. This will change eventually. We have the concept of rigid cultures versus flexible cultures also. This may vary in some aspects. This can be linked to cultural taxonomy also. We have the concept of individualistic versus collective cultures also. We have material versus non-material orientation also. Some cultures are more materially oriented and materialistically inclined. We have the concept of contentment versus innovation. We have rational orientation versus non-rational orientation, etc. Basically, in India, what happened is India has a fairly good Hori civilization. Even though Hindutva versions may be exaggerated, even bona fide reconstructions of history, apart from what Marxist hardliners like D and Jha have written, is highly subjective. Okay, because Marxist historiography prohibits winnowing the past for glory, I assume. Okay, Indians have been trampled by colonialism. We had first the British East India Company and directly the British Raj. And colonialists destroyed India's economy. They started making fun of us. They destroyed our pride, our self-esteem, etc. Okay, they also destroyed us economically and made us a bigger nation. And before that, even though we were ruled by Mughals, Mughal Empire was fairly large and fairly prosperous, in spite of the fact that they did not give bestow religious freedoms upon a majority of Indians. Okay, so initially, stereotypes about India prevailed. Examples being that it was a land of snake charmers, etc. Things have improved a little bit. Globalization has helped, and cultural barriers have been broken out. Right, even from a childhood, there is a big difference. Indians are now the highest ethnic group in the USA. Okay, the median US income by Asian national origin is far, far higher than other Asians, and even 50% or 45% higher than whites. We are ahead of Filipinos, Japanese, Chinese, Pakistanis, Vietnamese, Koreans, Thai, Bangladeshi, etc. And Indians are leading several tech companies like Sundar Pichai. We have Satya Nadella of Microsoft. Indians are also in US politics in big way. We have Kamala Harris, Nikki Haley, Bobby Jindal, Vivek Ramaswamy, etc. Nikki Kamala Harris is half Indian, half Jamaican. Okay, we also have Sunita Williams. She's also half Indian, half Gujarati, but half East European, I presume. Indians are also far ahead of Pakistanis and Bangladesh. I assume there is some cultural orientation principle here. And there is also a religious factor because Hindus, Sikhs generally may give more importance to education. Again, I would like this to be based on hardcore data. And these few Indians who are doing well only represent the elites and the cream of the cream. Indians still lag behind in science. We are only slightly beginning to catch up. We are number three or number four in as far as scientific publications is concerned. We are eyeing to be top spot in 50 years. This may or may not happen. But we still have a long way to go, and the quality of papers published is still subpar in many cases. Citations are lower, and we publish in subpar journals often. We often resort to braggadocio and weasel words, weasel talk, etc. We talk sometimes about rishis flying in saucers 5,000 years ago. So we have pseudoscientific method like archaeoastronomy to calculate dates is not entirely correct. You can do your own research on this. We talk about Pushpak Vimanas. Again, according to G. Nageshwar Rao, Vice Chancellor of Andhra University in Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, stem cell research was conducted in India thousands of years ago, which is absurd. Lord Ganesha, according to some people, represents the transplantation of an elephant head on a human body. And we still have people subscribing to out of India theory, Vedic Indus theory, shouting out against the defunct Aryan invasion theory, which is an outdated, antiquated, and oversimplified theory, according to Robin Zain Boss, Michael Witzel, others, Gregory Posel, etc. And Indus Valley civilization is not Vedic because IBC is outside Aryabhata and it disappeared by 1300 BC, unlike the Vedic culture, which still flourished at the time of the Buddha. That's why he spoke about it. Sanskrit was also not a widely spoken language. We cannot again project the present into the past. That's what Hindu people do. Cultures will vary. Even if you see the Bhattiprolu script in Andhra Pradesh, it is different from modern Telugu. Okay, and Tamil Brahmi around 600 BC is different from modern Brahmi. Ashokan Brahmi is also different from modern Devanagari. Okay, so all these things must change. We must have a scientific view of history also. All these things may change within a generation. Hindutva again has ruled the roost for the past 1 or 2 days. It was a reaction against Marxist historiography and colonial historiography, but we need a reaction to the reaction also. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, Hindutva is originally a state of quality of being Hindu, or it is refers to Hindus. Okay, if you want to have pride in one's religion, it's okay because Hinduism is a very diverse and flexible religion compared to Islam and even Christianity. And the term Hindutva was called by V.D. Savarkar 1922, and mild version of Hindutva appears to be okay, apparently, as long as you are taking pride in your own roots. Ram Jethmalani has said it's an innocuous ideology. He may be right or may be wrong. But to the extent it interferes with the scientific temper and it brings India or Hinduism a bad name, it will even bring Hinduism a bad name. Okay, Hinduism is a very dynamic and flexible religion. I have written about this previously. It can be made compatible with science, unlike Islam, which may not be compatible with science prima facie. Okay, so Indians should again up their ante and then step up their efforts. And I don't believe in racism. I have written about quashing racism. I have written about the certainty uncertainty principle. I have written that there's a persecution or discrimination complex often involved. Okay, and because you may have comprehensive socio cultural persecution complex. Okay, I've written about this. Please read my three papers on certainty and uncertainty principle. Again, the rise of Germany is very impressive. Okay, we had big brands like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audi. They became manufacturing powers. The rise of Japan is also amazing after the Second World War. They had car makers, electronic manufacturers, a lot of different types of manufacturing. We had the Japanese auto invasion, which started in a small way in 1957 with a car called the Toyota, which was laughed at. But by the 70s, Japanese car makers had become mainstream. They're edging out the big three even. Okay, South Korea and China have risen too. China's rise, as a matter of fact, is now beginning to frighten other people. India is way behind, and I still strongly believe that our we are constrained by our inappropriate and antiquated mind orientation, cultural orientation, with the exception of few elites. So this must change with the times. Indians barely have a scientific temper. There are some of them, especially Hindutva people, they're preoccupied with the India's real or imagined. It may be real, of course. India has a glorious past, to past glorious history, scientific history, rather than trying to figure out how to make India's scientific power at the present. The latter is far more important. Okay, and pseudoscience is ascribed sometimes, pseudo history is ascribed sometimes to Ignya Bharati Vibha, which is the science wing of the Rashtra Swayam website. Okay, we also sometimes have a culture of poverty. People develop some habits to give steep their families in poverty for several generations. This theory was popularized by Oscar Lewis. He was a famous anthropologist in 1960s, and he studied in he based his studies on theories in Mexico, Puerto Rico, and New York. People also have an aspiration deficit. They don't hitch their wagon to a star, and our education system must improve. Please read my various papers and read my blog. Abhilasha is not utopia. Also, it is in WordPress and it is in the another blog also. Please read about it. Okay, it is not for some reason applying in appearing in Google search. I hope it will rectify itself in a couple of weeks. Changing our moral mind orientation, cultural orientation will have a ripple effect and a multiplier effect too. And India and other developing countries, I want other developing countries also to improve. Okay. And we have had people, for example, India people still think that Indians are very stupid. They have no scientific temper, etc. For example, Gregory Posel made fun of me, agreed he contributed enormously to study of ancient India. He still believed in American exceptionalism, and he refused to do the review once I provided all my evidence. I had the right to review my paper, but apparently it was not a review at all. It was highly racist, and he was making fun of Indians. Okay, he must be criticized and chastised for this. But Indians are also at fault. They scarcely have a scientific temper, because Indians also, I mean, people make fun of Indians because Indians also scientifically not oriented or scientifically not inclined. So I strongly believe there can be a change in 1 or 2 generations. I suggest all Indians to ponder over what I have said, and people from other developing countries also, to the extent it's applicable to you. Bring up your kids differently, instill in them a scientific temper from young age. Okay, scientific temper is a way of thinking that involves logic and reasoning to approach issues, and being open-minded and avoiding bias. Also, you must also be aware of the latest scientific developments, advances, and what's happening in the rest of the world. You must have awareness of other cultures also. Open-mindedness, being open to new ideas, even if they go against preconceived notions, is important. Logical thinking, using logical and reasoning to approach all issues, avoiding bias, preconceived notions, etc. Critical thinking, approaching issues with a critical mind. I have written extensively about this critical thinking techniques also. Please read my previous papers. And always discussion, analysis, and a dialectical approach is also extremely important. Again, I thank you very much. Please go through this and let me know what you feel in the comments below. Thank you very much.